the specialists of 2042 are going to be a balance nightmare. We can all tell that before release, let alone once they start adding more later on to try to sell more loot boxes. The fact they can't even balance the small pool they've got at the start, a pool which, were it never increased, though it will be, would be perfectly balanceable, frankly, is not a good sign, and I have no faith that 2042 will be a balanced game. Ever. The hilarious thing is that DICE has already solved the balance problem here. I've been saying, since BF5 was released, that clearly different people have taken over, and this is the case, because they were trying to reinvent the wheel, and still are, although this time driven by EA pushing them to paradoxically try to leech players from not just Warzone, but Apex, which they also own? Not sure they've thought that one through. When the solution to class balance was already found in Battlefield 1. I don't care how much you loved 3 or 4, those games did not have good class balance. There was a clear bias in those games towards Assault and Engineer, and the only reason people ever played Engineer was because they had rocket launchers. If you played on, say, Pearl Market or Metro, everyone was going to play Assault, because Assault has both the best all-around weapons in the game, assault rifles, can revive others, and can heal themselves and others. Frankly, it's just too much good stuff in one class. If you're going to make assault rifles that good, you can't then also pair them with medic gadgets that allow the player to easily keep themselves and others alive. This is how you end up with the medic train, where most of your team are assaults who constantly run around reviving each other until everyone runs out of ammo because no one ever wants to play support. And those that do never fucking throw it down for some reason. Come to think of it, this isn't even a new issue. Battlefield 2 gave medics very good assault rifles, which caused people to gravitate towards it over assault because having body armor wasn't really a good trade for being able to heal yourself. So the only thing assault had up its sleeve was the grenade launcher, which wasn't generally useful enough to be a huge perk when the medic also gets to carry around several hand grenades and the distance you could throw them in that game was just stupid. But Battlefield 1 got it right. In Battlefield 1, each class fills very specific roles, not just via their gadgets, which are the same as always, but by what weapons they use and what range those weapons are designed to be used at. A lot of people, especially YouTubers and streamers, bitch about BF1's non-rifle weapons being so inaccurate, which prevents them from engaging targets outside the weapon's intended range. They're missing the point, as that is exactly the point. Well, that, or they're just so used to BF4 and being able to microburst any weapon to take out targets at anything but long range that the minute the game asks them to be able to do more than fire their weapon and utilize other skills besides aim, like, I don't know, positioning and movement, that they complain at being forced out of their comfort zone. These people should be ignored, as it's clear that they just want the game to cater to their Twitch aim-based skill set and don't want to have to master other aspects of playing a shooter such as movement, i.e. how one intelligently moves to within your weapon's effective range without being taken out by weapons with a different effective range. So, how did BF1 balance each class exactly? Well, for starters, they finally decoupled effective CQB weaponry from medic gadgets, something they would immediately reverse themselves on in BFV, unfortunately. Medic returns as a dedicated class, and Engineer disappears. Instead, Assault possesses both the most effective CQB weaponry in the game, in the form of SMGs and shotguns, and almost all the game's explosive and anti-tank weapons. This makes Assault a Slayer class. It has no support functions, but is purely designed to kill enemy players. However, its weaponry is, except for the rocket guns, only effective in close quarters. Every other class defeats it beyond the effective range of whatever SMG or shotgun it's using, which is quite short. So short, in fact, it's almost superfluous for most of them to even have ADS, since they should just be hip-fired anyway. Since they can't quickly heal themselves like they could in 3 and 4, they are absolutely reliant on medics to support them on approach, and they have to play a risky game of moving very close to the enemy without getting killed before being able to realistically fight back. Now, this makes them dominant on CQB maps, of course, but relegates them to a sort of supporting anti-tank role / like flag cap stormer on more open maps. Being a good assault player basically requires either just playing Fort Vaux in Argonne Forest 24/7, which I would accuse of being dreadfully boring were it not for the fact that there's a dedicated player base for Operation Metro, of all fucking maps, or learning good cover and movement practices. Your twitch aim will only help you inside your weapon's effective range. Outside that, you've got to constantly try to get yourself within range without getting killed. Medics, therefore, being detached from close quarters weapons, cannot dominate in close quarters anymore. Like Assault at range, they become a support class in CQB, where their primary purpose is to keep assaults and supports alive so they can do most of the killing. While at mid-range, their semi-autos allow them to dunk on support players, sort of, especially at longer mid-range, while being vulnerable to scouts, unless you're a very good or quick shot. BF1 doesn't have a dedicated, mid-range class per se. Support operates best at, mid to close range, while Medic is best at mid to long range. The main takeaway here, however, is that Medics have less effective weaponry the closer the range is, which makes them reliant on assaults and supports for actual killing power on, say, flag captures, or whenever they have to close range to revive someone, which makes them more of a support class. Since there's no assault rifles in BF1 except the Fedorov, I guess, the closest you can get to generalist weapons in the game are the machine guns that the supports carry, and it helps that their ammo capacity is often huge. Now, the lower rates of fire on many of them, over to the time period, still give them long times to kill, relative to modern battlefields. But the fact they're automatic, reasonably accurate out to mid-range, and capable of accurate, sustained fire rather than having to be bursted, allows them to dunk on assaults at anything but close quarters, and take on multiple opponents at once, which makes them the best class for back rage montages if you're an aspiring MLG Clipmaster YouTube pro, unless you really love the Hell Regal for some reason. And scouts dominate at long range, obviously, but unlike BF4, where sniping is almost always a useless endeavor because of the stupidly low bullet velocity and high gravity of whatever planet Battlefield 4 takes place on, along with the fact that you must get a headshot, in BF1, sniping is fucking amazing. Bullet velocities much higher, and the bullet drop much lower, which makes it much easier to actually hit your target, especially if they're moving. And I don't care how many people insist that the sweet spot is a bad idea, it is a good idea. There's even a fucking visual indicator on the scope glint telling you if you're in the one-shot kill range of that rifle. It's your fucking fault for running out there and banking on them missing. Not only does it allow you to get so satisfying one-shot kills, it feels amazing to play as a sniper and get a one-shot kill, but it also allows the bolt actions to be different from each other in some fashion except bolt cycling time, as otherwise it would be redundant to have this many similar rifles in the game. The sweet spot gives each weapon a specific range at which it is optimal to engage, i.e. where it will kill in one hit. This, incidentally, encourages people to learn good range estimation, which is again something that people apparently don't like to learn how to do. This, combined with their oh-so-helpful flares, means scouts are actually capable of meaningful contribution to the fight, significantly as a slayer class with some support elements, even being forced to use bolt actions, whereas in BF4, recons were only useful as a suppressed carbine-wielding commando. But they're not overpowered, of course. They get wrecked by any other class at mid to close range. People, I think, simply weren't used to them being useful at all, and thus construed this in their minds as unfair and overpowered, and justified it by saying it was too noob-friendly and low skill. Well, maybe those complaining should themselves get good and learn how to not make themselves easy sniper targets. Now, why this balance wasn't kept for Battlefield 5, I have no idea, as it would map onto it easily. Instead, they made the abominable decision to give the medics SMGs and give assaults both automatic and semi-automatic rifles while keeping the anti-tank weapons, while also allowing them to carry around med packs so they don't have to rely on medics for anything except revives, thus tilting the scales back towards making the game assault field once again. They also ditched the spread mechanics of BF1 in favor of recoil, mostly, allowing the complainers to engage targets at ranges beyond what their weapons are in theory supposed to be balanced for, thus allowing assault weapons to dominate at most ranges. Again, and with any specialist in 2042 able to equip any weapon, and with there going to be dozens of specialists eventually available, so as to rake in more cash, the balance is going to be totally out the window with no survivors. and with it, my interest in buying Battlefield games whatsoever.